Badenoch.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody. Thank you. Thank you for coming this afternoon. Keir Starmer's position is untenable. The Prime Minister is putting his own interest before the national interest. He has misled Parliament and he has misled the country on a matter of national security. Nothing is more serious. He is not fit to govern. For months, he has been telling the country a complete untruth, that Peter Mandelson's appointment as our ambassador was down to a failure of vetting. We now know something very simple. It wasn't the vetting process that failed. Mandelson failed the vetting. And despite that, despite it being known that his appointment would pose a risk to national security, somehow he was appointed anyway. Someone pushed that appointment through. The Prime Minister is now asking us to believe that no one in government thought to tell him or his team that Mandelson had failed vetting, that the first he heard about it was on Tuesday night. This is preposterous. He is taking the public for fools. We know that Number 10 was told that Mandelson had failed his vetting because journalists told them in September last year. This leaves us with two possibilities. Either the Prime Minister is lying, or he is so incompetent that he is unfit to run the country. Either way, his position is untenable. As this scandal has unraveled, he has sought to pin the blame on everyone but himself. He has blamed the security services. He has sacked his chief of staff. He has sacked the cabinet secretary. He has now sacked Ollie Robbins, the permanent secretary of the Foreign Office. All this from a man who once said, "I will carry the can for the mistakes of any organization I lead." The reality is, he is undermining the very fabric that underpins government. He likes to present himself as a man of spotless integrity. This, remember, is a Prime Minister who spent his entire time in opposition telling people that he was whiter than white, telling the country that the rules mattered, that standards mattered, that misleading Parliament mattered. But who once in office has repeatedly put his own self-interest above the national interest. A man who has tried to cling on to his job, whatever the cost. He is so blinded by faith in his own righteousness that he cannot see what everyone else in the country can see. That this is a national disgrace. The buck stops with him, and the only decent response is to resign. Can you imagine what he would think about this national security breach if this was anyone else? Do we really think that Keir Starmer would say, "Oh, all right then, that's fair enough"? Or do we think he would say, "It is your job to know whether or not Peter Mandelson failed his vetting. It is your job not to appoint people who pose a risk to this country to the highest roles in our diplomatic service"? He would say it is your job not to repeatedly mislead Parliament. It is my job as leader of the opposition to hold the Prime Minister to account. He cannot deny that he has recklessly misled the House. He cannot deny that this is his unforgivable failure. How could the former chief prosecutor not have asked basic questions about what went wrong in this appointment? He cannot hide behind the line, "Don't blame me, I'm just the Prime Minister." He said it himself, if you mislead Parliament, you must resign. Those were his standards in opposition. They must be his standards now. the fact is, none of this would have come to light without the work of the Conservatives in opposition. While Nigel Farage was calling Peter Mandelson a good choice as ambassador, Conservative MPs like Ian Duncan-Smith were raising concerns. I asked the Prime Minister about Mandelson's vetting all the way back at PMQs in September. It was the Conservatives who stopped the government from brushing this under the carpet with urgent question after urgent question in Parliament. It was the Conservatives who had to drag the government through a humble address to His Majesty to get the Mandelson files to be released. It's even being reported this week that the government was considering hiding the fact that Mandelson failed the vetting from the release of the files. Every time they have come up with a new excuse, it has left us with more questions than answers. The stench of cover-up is now overwhelming. This scandal is unfolding at a time when Britain is facing serious challenges at home and abroad. The Prime Minister has just lost the head of the Foreign Office at a time of crisis in the Middle East. Britain has been exposed as militarily unprepared, and we have former Labour defence ministers pleading with the government to act on our national security. And yet we have a government distracted by its own scandal. A Prime Minister who thinks that sitting on the fence is military strategy, whose every decision makes the people of this country poorer. The drip, drip, drip of revelations is doing real damage. It damages trust in government, it damages trust in our institutions, and it damages Britain's standing abroad. Because our allies are not fools either. They can see a Prime Minister more interested in saving himself than serving the country, and people at home can see it too. Keir Starmer is now so discredited in the eyes of the nation that he cannot hope to lead Britain through any of this. The excuse that we need this man because it is a time of crisis doesn't wash. If he has lied to us about this, what else has he lied about? If he has been incompetent about managing a simple appointment, what else has he been incompetent about? If he hasn't asked questions about this, what else has he not asked questions about? Asking the country to keep this man in place to save face for the Labour Party is the wrong choice. The Prime Minister said this morning that he is furious that he was not told about the failed vetting. Let me tell him who should be furious. The countless people he has thrown under the bus to save his own skin. The ministers sent out onto the media for months to lie on his behalf. The Labour MPs who have been made to look like crooks to their constituents. He has no right to be furious. It is Parliament and the country who should be furious with him. The government must now come clean. First, we know the journalists had told Number 10 in September about the failure of vetting, and Number 10 officials did not deny those claims. The Prime Minister said this morning that no one in Number 10 knew. That is simply not correct. Is the Prime Minister really saying no one in Number 10 knew? Or is he saying that they knew and didn't tell him? And if so, does this not demonstrate that Keir Starmer is not in control of his own office? Secondly, I am demanding that the government publish all documents related to the appointment of Peter Mandelson by the end of next week. There can be no more cover-up, no more excuses, no more delays. Thirdly, the country has a right to know why Peter Mandelson failed the vetting. It is immensely serious that the Prime Minister appointed someone as an ambassador who failed vetting. What dangers did he expose our country to? We have a right to know. And finally, Keir Starmer needs to take responsibility. This scandal is not ending. Every week brings another revelation, another contradiction, another excuse. He has run out of people to sack. He has run out of places to hide. He has run out of authority. The buck stops with him. His position is untenable, and he must go. I now have questions from the media. The first is Shihab Khan from ITV, please.
Shihab Khan from ITV News. You appear to be saying that the Prime Minister has told mistruths. I just want to clarify from you that do you believe the Prime Minister is lying, yes or no? And a quick second question, if I may. You've spoken about the need for the Prime Minister to go. He's made it clear that he's not going to resign. Calls for his resignation have also come from other opposition party leaders. Will you therefore do anything to try and make him resign? Should we expect a no-confidence motion to be coming from you and your party?
All right, so you asked if I believe that the Prime Minister is lying. Yes, I do. The only other alternative is that he is so grossly incompetent, he has no idea what is going on. He told me at PMQs that full due process has been followed. Now it's looking like he appointed Mandelson before the vetting was completed. That is not full due process. That is untrue. So he lied. He told a press conference on the 5th of February that Mandelson had passed the security vetting. Why did he say that if no one had told him anything about security vetting? Because he hasn't said that he was told something opposite. There are so many mistruths. In fact, the last time I questioned Keir Starmer about Peter Mandelson, people might remember he actually refused to answer a simple question about whether or not he spoke to Peter Mandelson. I asked him again and again. So that is why I believe that he is lying. You asked what it is we're going to do about it. I am now considering every parliamentary option, but the fact is the country gave Labour a landslide 2 years ago. I do not have enough Conservative MPs to win a vote of no confidence. The people who can do that, who can make this happen, are Labour MPs. Labour MPs now need to decide whether they're going to be complicit in this cover-up and keep this man there to save their jobs, or whether they are going to do the right thing. Next question, Andy Bell, Channel 5, please.
Thank you. Andy Bell, 5 News. Isn't it the case that technically under the process, those civil servants at the Foreign Office did have the discretion to push ahead with an appointment, even if the vetting had not gone correctly or had been failed? So is it correct to say the due process was followed and therefore the Prime Minister has not bespoken to Parliament?
If an appointment was made before the security vetting was complete, that is not due process. And I, quite frankly, am tired of the Prime Minister blaming everybody but himself. It is inconceivable, preposterous, that civil servants heard the Prime Minister say in Parliament, on TV, that Mandelson passed the vetting, and no one thought to say, actually, Prime Minister, that's not true. That is just not credible. Do we really believe that? This, in fact, in my view, is a smear on civil servants. They cannot speak for themselves. It is unfair for Keir Starmer to keep throwing every single person under the bus, from the Cabinet Secretary, his own Chief of Staff, all the way right down, just to save his own skin. That's wrong. Rob Howard from Sky, please.
Thank you, Rob Howard, Sky News. You said it's not an excuse to say we can't change the Prime Minister at a time of crisis, but lots of people out there are very, very worried about what the Iran war will mean for their household finances, for the cost of living. Are you genuinely saying that you think what they want right now is a Labour leadership contest and another Prime Minister? Is that really what people sitting at home thinking, yes, we want that?
What people at home want is someone in charge of our country who is not dishonest and who knows what he is doing. This scandal is showing that that man is not Keir Starmer. Leaders have changed during crises before. What people at home will be worried about is what is going on if this man is in charge. How can we trust a man who has not been honest about so many things to manage a war or to manage a crisis? In fact, I think it is the opposite, that what he has shown is that we are in trouble believing that this is the person to get us through the problems that we have right now. Sitting on the fence and claiming to be a great war leader is not how we recognize great leadership in this country. He has not shown the judgment, the decision-making, the personal integrity that I think that office demands. And the public wants somebody who is competent managing their affairs. He has shown that he is incompetent. Nick Eardley, BBC, please.
Thank you. Kemi Badenoch, the former senior civil servant Keir Martin, has told the BBC. I'm going to try again. The former senior civil servant, Kemi Badenoch, has told the BBC that the proper process was followed here. The Prime Minister is adamant that he wasn't told about this until this week. It is a big step for the Leader of the Opposition to call the Prime Minister a liar. Where's your evidence?
Well, I've laid out my evidence multiple times. Starmer's own words in Parliament. Let us hear from Ollie Robbins himself. Let us hear from the officials who went through this. Let us hear from the staff in Number 10. Let them come out and tell us that the Prime Minister has absolutely no idea and no clue what is going on because we don't tell him. Because that is the only other explanation. It is simply not credible. The fact is, Peter Mandelson was appointed very early on, before Ollie Robbins even got into the job. So how is it Ollie Robbins' fault that the due process was not followed? This story stinks, and we should stop looking for excuses to save Keir Starmer's skin. He is clutching at every single straw. The story does not wash, and he is being held to the same standards which he held previous prime ministers. I'm not doing anything different from what Keir Starmer himself said when he was leader of the opposition. Chris Hope, GB News, please.
Kemi Badenoch, the Ministerial Code says inadvertent errors can be corrected at the first opportunity, and then that's fine. The PM says now, if you know what he knows now, he would have told MPs, including you, last September, about the failure of vetting Peter Mandelson in the previous January. So surely that should be enough for him next week. And Ollie Robbins, should he be forced to give evidence to the Foreign Affairs Committee next Tuesday?
So, I believe that the first opportunity, if we're to take the story that the Prime Minister has told us at face value, that he only heard about this on Tuesday, the first opportunity for him to explain what happened was Wednesday at Prime Minister's questions. He chose not to say anything. So if he didn't take the opportunity to tell the House on Wednesday, if we had to find out from The Guardian, we haven't found this out from ministers coming to confess, why should we believe that he would have taken the opportunity to have told us in September? Every single thing he says just leads to more questions. The story does not wash, and I do think that Ollie Robbins should come to Parliament and explain exactly what's going on. Parliament deserves the truth. The public deserve the truth. This is why we asked for the release of the documents in the humble address. I do not believe that all of the documents relating to Peter Mandelson's appointment have been released. Let's get those documents out now. Next, Martin Brown, The Express, please.
Thank you. The last time Keir Starmer got into hot water over this, his cabinet trudged out one by one to come out and support him. Today we've just had Darren Jones. Has he lost his cabinet now?
Well, I think it is, you raise a very interesting point. I think it is significant that Labour ministers are not rushing out to defend Keir Starmer. He has led them up the garden path many times before and had to U-turn on so many occasions. Many people are beginning to wonder whether they, not just that they have been lied to, but that they have been lying on his behalf. So I'm not surprised that ministers are reticent to come out and defend the Prime Minister. Genevieve Hall-Allen, please. Telegraph.
Some have likened the current situation facing the Prime Minister right now to that faced by Boris Johnson and Partygate when he also faced allegations of misleading Parliament. Would you agree that these are two similar situations, and if so, do you think that the Privileges Committee should investigate this?
So when it comes to investigations with the Privileges Committee and all other parliamentary procedures which could be taken, the right way to go about doing this is through the Speaker's office and in Parliament. I would not want to be speculating on TV. But what we did see in 2022 was Keir Starmer holding Boris Johnson to a standard. I am now holding Keir Starmer to the same standard, and he is falling well short. Sophie Church, The Mail.
Thank you. If Ollie Robbins did push the appointment through, knowing it was ultimately Starmer's wish, has Starmer acted rashly in immediately sacking him, and should he apologise?
Well, as I've said, every single action, every statement just raises more and more questions. I think the most significant thing from this is that if this was something done by officials, it shows the Prime Minister's incompetence, because it means that a former chief prosecutor did not ask the basic question: did he pass the security vetting? At no point have we heard that he was given false information. So that what Keir Starmer is telling us is that even when journalists were asking, even when I was asking, he did not go to his officials and ask the simple question, did Peter Mandelson fail the security vetting? That is simply not plausible. That is why I think he is lying. If he is not lying, then he is grossly incompetent and not fit to run the country. Kate Devlin, please. Kate Devlin from The Independent.
Thank you. As you said, The Independent revealed 7 months ago that Peter Mandelson had failed his security vetting and crucially put that to Keir Starmer as Director of Communications in Downing Street. Is that one of the key facts that leads you to say you think Keir Starmer is lying? And if I may, with this tranche of documents about the Mandelson appointment, would you also like to see papers released on what happened inside Downing Street after The Independent told that Director of Communications that Mandelson had failed his vetting?
So I did see David Maddox's, the image of the message which he sent to Tim Allen, an official, the Director of Communications, one of the most senior officials in Number 10. That is very significant. Back in September, these questions were asked. I find it very hard to believe that the Director of Communications did not tell anyone or even ask anybody before answering. He did not deny the claims. That is one of the reasons why I think that they knew more than they are pretending to know now. I think it is very significant that we are seeing that questions were asked and answers were denied. This is a cover-up, one way or another. The humble address which we put forward should also lead to the release of documents that follow what happened after David Maddox asked those questions, so after The Independent asked those questions. I am very concerned now that a lot of documents are not being released because they will show the extent of this cover-up and just how incompetent the operation in Number 10, going right up to the Prime Minister, has been. Chris McCown.
Do you think it was right that Ollie Robbins went as the Permanent Secretary for Foreign Office, and do you think he should receive a severance payment?
So what we are seeing is that taxpayers are paying a lot of money for Keir Starmer's mistakes. It was Keir Starmer who appointed Ollie Robbins. He was not in the civil service when he became Prime Minister, just as it was Keir Starmer who appointed the Cabinet Secretary, Chris Walmont. He is throwing all of these people under a bus to save his own skin. I think it'll be very interesting to see what Ollie Robbins says at the Select Committee. That's why I think that he should go. It is time for the cover-ups to stop, and it is time for the Prime Minister to stop blaming everybody else except himself. Alexandra Topping, The Guardian.
You referred to The Guardian's reporting that officials discussed withholding vetting documents ahead of this story breaking. Are you concerned that this is going to happen, and what action will you take if you fear that there is a lack of transparency?
So I think it would be very serious if we find out that the vetting documents are being withheld. Documents which are particularly sensitive were to go to the ISC, the Intelligence and Security Committee. That is a committee with the highest level of security clearance, which should have been able to look at those. What we're hearing now sounds like the ISC has not received all the documents. Perhaps if they have been received, they're being covered up in some kind of way. So they should be sending documents unredacted. Let's see the full story. We will be looking at all of the options. We need to know what's going on before we start planning the next set of actions. But the Conservatives have been looking at this issue, exposing the government's failures time and time again. We are not letting this go because it shows the rot at the heart of Keir Starmer's government. And the final question I have is Ralph Blackburn from the Yorkshire Post, please.
Thank you. Ray Blackburn, Yorkshire Post.
Right.
You said a few months ago that you'd been in conversations with Labour MPs who were potentially thinking about joining a motion of no confidence. Have those continued up to today? And secondly, are you concerned that there could have been other cases where candidates failed their vetting but were still appointed into similar roles?
So, yes, previously some Labour MPs had spoken to whips, not to me directly, had spoken to whips explaining how unhappy they were with Keir Starmer's government. I would encourage them to do the same. Now, more people will be upset because it looks like people have been going out and telling lies on behalf of the Prime Minister. I'm not in a position to know whether people have been appointed despite failing vetting, but this case raises serious questions. What we do know is that Keir Starmer wanted Peter Mandelson. He appointed Peter Mandelson. This is his responsibility, sacking everybody else and claiming to have been ignorant because he's just the Prime Minister, he doesn't have access to information and he's not supposed to ask difficult questions, simply doesn't wash. Something is not right about this story. Our Prime Minister is either telling serious lies or he is grossly incompetent. Either way, his position is untenable. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.